What's up? Good morning, everyone. Doing a rare midday video because it's a tough market, and I'm staying active but staying small. Just Jake and I here trading a bit. We're both short on the cues after the market showed some weakness on that headline. Not moving very well, honestly, after the repricing, but luckily just got a really quick scalp on VIX. I just feel like VIX is very cheap here. It kind of swept the prior lows, which is honestly very interesting to see given that like we ended the ceasefire earlier. Just like this move from Q is interesting to see after that headline hit, after that Trump tweet rather, because it's not new news that got announced. So staying cautious here, taking some small shots. MU is interesting here because there's good 10 and 15 minute alignment. Actually, it looks like the 15 is trying to crack, but I would need a second candle confirmation here, and this candle hasn't fully formed. But it still looks interesting in my opinion. Even though I am short Q right here and I have some VIX calls, which is expressing a bearish viewpoint. And by the way, we still have some AMD lotto puts that aren't working but aren't getting like hit heavy. I still am playing long on relative strength. We took some shot profits this morning, maybe a little too fast up the morning pop, but I went ahead and bought the dip, bought the 65-minute EMA defense. It doesn't look amazing right here, but especially after the major exhaustion. But if we zoom out, like this is what I want to see from this name is nice back test, get defended. I don't want to get faked out when the chart looks so good on the weekly. And we could see that this becoming a first rejection is not the biggest deal. We could see how big this key level is. But if we could get another pop through it, it should give us another, $10 of upside. This 38 range is the next massive pivot point we could see. And once you clear above that, you're kind of good till like 156. And since we had the good confluence on the higher time frames, that's kind of what I'm looking for there. Owl's been one on my radar that I just set up now because it set this major low here, higher low, and it's starting to break through this first trend line. Now, remember the major bearish trend line is actually a lot higher. It's at $10, so it's like $1.50 higher from where it is right now. But one of the things that's interesting to me is as we have a potential weekly flip here that could send us right to that target. So I went ahead and took some size here. What put this on my radar was actually Augur. I don't know how you've all been deciding to use this, but I pop out Augur actually from our app. And so I watch this all day long as it sends signals in. And kind of keep an eye on the daily heat map, which by the way, if you go to heat map, you go by day, and then you load that data, you can get a nice heat map and see what are the biggest unusual option trades on the day. It's a lot easier to view it that way. So that's what I've been watching. That's what I'm watching every day, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's a tough moment on the market. I see Qs coming lower. Looks like our AMD puts are coming back. With the way that I have the portfolio set up, we're not going to really get massive gains either direction. We're just kind of looking to capture maybe some short-term weakness and then see a rebound in the next week. Mostly from the memory names and the relative strength. So I feel like overall, in an environment like this, it's definitely a stock picker's market. I mean, that's very apparent when we look at, like this heat map where you're kind of 50-50 and you could see that some names are just having outsized performance or outsized weakness. Stock selection is everything when the market's kind of like this. I see that actually MU's trying to confirm downside here, so I might fail a second lot attempt, which is fine. It's no big deal. With plays like this, you just got to take them off the risk reward. And there was a pretty good setup this morning because there was some pretty good 10-minute, 15-minute confluence. And honestly, here, they're still not cracking the 10-minute. I mean, it's unusual, quite honestly. I might give this a little bit more time for the second attempt and wait for SKHY to go live. They should probably go live in about 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours around noon. And then I want to see how the memory names react to that IPO. It is expected to IPO around 180, which is obviously a lot higher than where it was initially intended to release, but there's a lot of heavy subscriptions, similar to what we saw with SpaceX, right? SpaceX IPO'd at 130, ended up rallying to, I believe, like 200, didn't it? What was the high here? Was the high the 176? No, the high was 225. My word. Yeah, because this IPO'd at 130, opened at 150, and then ran to 225. Keep in mind, this was $2 trillion IPO, whereas this upcoming SKYH IPO, I believe, is this is 1 trillion. Is that right? Let me fact check that real quick. I thought this company was significantly smaller than that. Do you got any comments? Yeah, actually, it is 1 trillion. Okay, it's way bigger than I thought. So similar story to, that's probably pretty juiced, quite honestly. I thought it was like 500. I don't know why I thought that. Maybe I read it somewhere. Jake, you got any comments? Yeah, that's fair. Oh, I have you muted on here. For those who didn't hear him, he said it's a crazy day. He's just kind of playing it slow. Are you still in the QQQ puts?
Yes, I am.
Yep. I think it's smart to just leave those on here, especially with us coming and testing the pre-market low again. This is the market kind of like checking to see is that selling real or not. Bigger picture, guys. Remember, like these breakdowns on the daily and the 2-day can become big reversals that end up sending us through the top of this wedge. However, it's almost easier if they rug the market, maybe next week or something, and then cut rates, and then we get the huge V-shaped recovery out of it. That would be the easiest thing to play, but it doesn't have to happen. The thing that keeps me from getting like net long here is that this still looks awful. It's not giving me any confirmations. I should also comment on the NVIDIA longs I set up today. I know I bought it kind of high, and I could have been maybe a little bit more patient, but I'm about to get a flip on the daily, which is a lot different from what I'm seeing on the Qs and just across the broader market. Like NVIDIA has really great relative strength here. And I think the new open source platform is really, really impressive. I know Meta's getting all the attention. I think that this is a little overblown. Meta's really cheap, and so it might be a great replacement for Chinese models like Kimi and stuff, which people are using because they're really cheap, but they're not as good. So you can't use it as like if you're integrating these into your business, you can't use it as like a brain. Whereas NVIDIA is actually almost applicable for that. I do think there's this interesting trend also going on where like Oracle, Irene, and NBIS are getting hit today on the headline that Oracle's debt was downgraded to B minus, a triple B minus, when it was a triple B plus. I think that's just, what do they know? They don't know anything. So about the actual fundamentals. So I think that's gonna, maybe we'll see something like a sweep, maybe down to the 120s, and I think I just have to close my eyes and buy this hand over fist, because I honestly think the news that Meta is going to be building a data center, even though that spooked the market into the market thinking like, oh, all the big players are going to build their own data centers because the margins are too high with other companies, which is bad for the cloud companies. We've seen these kind of knee-jerk reactions because a lot of investors think in scarcity. They think in they are not used to such crazy, insane demand, right? So where you can, this market's big enough right now to fund all those different participants within it easily. So, and I think that the fears of Oracle being too invested into OpenAI, and what if OpenAI fails? Well, OpenAI fails. I mean, we've got so many key players here. We've got so much demand here that I think that's completely overblown fears. Fundamentally, but remember, if you're trading on fundamentals, you still have to respect price action on the short term. So I haven't set anything up. Obviously we made some money on Oracle actually catching this initial move up and then kind of got out. This is a weekly chart. That's a poor example of the bounces we've caught a few times on this thing off this major like 137 key level, which we're about to test again. It doesn't look to me like it's actually going to hold at this time, surprisingly. But I think there'll be a moment very soon where I might even triple down on my long-term holdings there, just because it's just too juicy of an opportunity. But yeah, this videos are already getting up to 12 minutes, but just a few comments on the midday because it's an atypical day. There's a lot going on. There was that spooky headline, and I just kind of want to explain some of the disagreeing positions. I'm definitely running a long short portfolio right now. I'm not leaning either direction, which I think is the way to be. Alternatively, I don't think there's anything wrong with just like sitting on cash, much like Jake is, and just not doing anything, waiting to see what becomes more clear tomorrow. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that whatsoever. I just think that there is some good risk rewards on some long ideas, but then the potential I get rugged over the weekend. That's where my head's at. I also think VIX is just extremely cheap here, given the environment. I think that headline showed me how weak this market is. And so in these conditions, if there is something more substantial than just a Trump tweet on already known news, I think that just showed me that we can take a huge dive, especially when like momentum is just dead in tech. That's what this is telling us. Momentum has been flat for pretty much all of June, and now is kind of like creeping back to the downside here in July. So I'd be cautious of some sort of rug event like this, or there's been a few, quite honestly. So keeping in mind that these previous rugs weren't that bad because they were normal retracements. This one actually set a higher low, but one here could end up breaking this major support line, and that can unravel really quickly, especially when so many people are buying up leverage ETFs and stuff. So anyways, hopefully I didn't drone on too much and repeat myself. I'm doing this on the fly with not organized thoughts, still trading the market, have positions on. Good luck, guys. Indecision can be tricky. It's a tricky chop day, but amazing profits this week. So even though I'm out here playing with stuff, I don't really have a ton of size except in those key, I'd say, swing ideas. So yeah, we'll keep hitting it out. I guess the one thing I'll leave on here is this still looks amazing on ANGX. LLY, Eli Lilly got a bit of a rug today. I see that, pullback could be pretty substantial here. I think the 65 is actually a bit oversold though, so we'll see if it chops up the rest of the day. But that's been dragging VKX down. Again, this is still not that concerning though. Our bigger picture here is still pretty healthy breakout. So, you know, it might consolidate here over this breakout range. It might just turn into a longer chomp consolidation, but we've already kind of made our short-term money and now just had swing in shares with plenty of time. So I'm really not too concerned about the short-term noise there. And that's all I got. All right. God bless. We'll continue trading the rest of the day and seeing what comes.